comes from the beginning of the last century. If you want to know more about that and how it has changed and what it has done, there's a book called by Mark Singleton called Yoga Body, which is very famous. It's actually a PhD thesis, so you can rely that pretty sure that it is sound, so to say, and not just somebody's imagination. Mark Singleton. So yoga has undergone a huge, huge evolution over the time. So when you study yoga today, we can only study always certain fragments of it because it's just too vast. You know, it takes a lifetime. The Gurukula, where Ramon went and where I was teaching, which is like a school, how should I say, a school to learn yoga. And the people go there for 3 years to 10 years to study. Wow. Not for 1 month. Right? Because, yes, when you go for 1 month or when you go for a certain time, you get a taste. And that's great, because unless you know what it tastes like, you can't get involved. Right? So it's perfect. What you're doing is perfect. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving you an idea about this, what a huge field it is. What a huge amount of knowledge and time and experience is involved in it. Right? So congratulations that you have made the first step. I mean, for a baby to walk, it needs to make the first step. And that's fantastic. So congratulations. But also be aware that there's a huge, I know nothing. And I mean it. Because even if you think I know a lot, compared to 6,000 years of knowledge, what is it? Okay? Get the feeling I'm trying to okay. And all of that just because I chanted a Sanskrit verse, okay? Okay. And then we have another problem. I'd show you a picture. Imagine an oasis in the desert. And imagine people living there thousands of years ago. And an oasis has a well, and in the well there's water. That's why you have an oasis. Everything around is desert. So you have to be very careful that nobody misuses the water, that everybody gets their fair share. So you need somebody who has control over that. And so when people think about what is the higher being like, what is, let's say, God, G-O-D, I'm putting it in quotation mark because I don't want to attribute any specific religion to it, right? But when we say, well, what is that? They say, oh, it's somebody who is like that. It's like somebody has a hierarchy, who is higher, knows better, can make sure that we all can survive in this hostile environment. You get the idea what I'm trying to say? So they make their image of God according to their life. So their brain and their education system and their society, everything is adjusted to this image. Because that's their life. They live like that, you know? Okay, so now go in another world. Go into the world of Southeast Asia. India, Indonesia, Malaysia, all these countries. Countries didn't exist, right, in those days. But I mean this kind of climate, where when you're hungry, you just go and get a banana from the tree, you know? Or life is easy, you know? So you share. You share everything with everybody. There's no problem because you don't need to watch out for anything. Very different from the person who has to watch out that I'm not taking too much water so that the other person still has some water. You get the idea? Because everything is there in reality. So when I imagine what is this higher being like, I mean, oh, it's somebody who shares, who's in everything, who is with care and looks after everybody in the same way. Okay? So now you get into the mixed climate, like Europe or North America or whatever. And so you have cold winters, you have hot summers, in the winter nothing grows. So you have to make sure that you develop the mind now that watches, observes, analyzes, and makes sure that everything is there in the right place, because otherwise you die. Right? So you develop a mindset and you develop an insight of that which is higher, which is very, very structured, very clear, because that's kind of how you have to live. So your environment is making the way you think. You understand what I'm saying? Over a long period of time of human evolution. Okay? So now why I'm saying that is, imagine that you have now a philosophy like yoga, which is developed in the Southeast Asian part, where everything is shared and everything is there and things like that, with that kind of mind. And you take it over to that analytical kind of world, where everything is analyzed and clarified and structured for that mentality, okay? So you have two different worlds. And they look at each other and they think differently. So when yoga comes to the West, to a different kind of mindset, yoga is analyzed and bits taken out, just as we learn as a culture to analyze everything and say, okay, this I need and this I don't need. Are you getting the picture? So they, okay, this part of yoga we don't need, but this part of yoga we do need. Because it's in the mindset of that kind of evolved thinking. Whereas if you stay in the East, they say, oh, we need to see beyond the whole picture. Right? Because everything is there, everything is shared. So when we transport yoga to the West, again it changes. Okay? Because otherwise those people in the West cannot understand. Right? Because that's their mindset. Now we play the other way around. Anything we have in the West, we have the same problem with trying to bring it to the East. Because their mindset cannot understand how you can want to analyze every posture. Because it's not about that. I'm making a cartoon, but I think you understand what I mean. And it is because we're coming from different worlds, we come from different cultures. So the problem or the difficulties for a good teacher is to bring these two perspectives together. So you are here in a society, in a world of a certain mindset, but your teachers are trying to adjust that mindset to your mindset. Right? So sometimes you don't understand what are they talking about. It makes no sense to me. This is why. Does that help a little bit? Because we just come from different sets. Both are good, both are beneficial, but they're different. And so we're trying to make them work together. So, when we talk about yoga, this is one of the problems in our modern times. A, the time scale involved and the change that is happening. B, transporting it in different kind of cultures, in different kind of metaphors, in different kinds of ways of thinking, you know. So when you are embarking to study yoga, you're trying to take your Western mindset and trying to understand what has evolved in a totally different culture with different minds, because mindsets are not the same. Right? And what is the mindset? I mean, a little bit, I think you get already from what I explained with the different areas of the globe. And of course, nowadays everything is mixed. So there's a huge big mixture which makes it even more complicated, but just try to make it simple. But if you think of a small child, a baby, and how it learns to build this computer we talked about yesterday, right? This mind that we have. So for the first time, it sees this object. Okay? The child says, has no idea what this is. Takes it out in the mouth, you know, just like it takes a toe in the mouth to try out what it is, because there's nothing in the mind that can. So mom says, this is a flask, right? So now it stores in its brain this picture, this shape, this color, this word in the memory store of the brain. So another time it sees something that is silver, but it is a mug. It says flask. You get it? Because one of the things fitted, and so the mind associated with that one thing that fits. So mom says, no, not glass, or big, or mug. Oh, mug. New storage in the brain. Silver can also mean that. Okay? So you can imagine for all the different objects the child sees. But of course, only those things are stored in this memory which that mother, that school, that teacher, that environment explain. So you have no way, absolutely incapable, to understand something which you haven't, which nobody has put the word, the thought, the idea in your head before. So how, coming out of the Western world, are you ever going to understand what you're doing? Think about it, huh? It's a very slow, long process because you have to rebuild the file of information. This is why when I just said 10 years, you also, because really to understand, you have to rebuild a file, a storage place in your mind. And the second thing about this picture is it's totally subjective. Okay? Because you can only understand what is in your mind. So your picture about the world, your picture about what you see, your picture even about yoga is totally subjective. Only related to what is in your mind. So what does that mean? It means there are no facts. Well, I know this is a window. That's a fact, no? I'm going to shatter your world now. But that's okay, you can rebuild it. There are no facts. Because if you have an architect here, sitting here, he would say that he would not perceive that as a window, he would perceive that as a hole in a specific building which has a specific function of filtering light. Alright? You get what I'm trying to say? So if you have a physicist here, he won't say this is just dancing vibration of a higher frequency because it's glass and therefore transparent. Okay? So different minds, different trained minds have different pictures of every single thing. So the world is totally subjective, and in the yoga world that's what's called Maya. I don't know whether you've heard that word, but it's called Maya. The world you perceive is Maya. It is your subjective picture, one could say your subjective illusion of the world. But I know my hand is real. Right? What are you talking about? Okay, let me give you an example. Obviously, pretty solid. This is my hand. Okay? Now, I take it to a kindergarten and I put it under the microscope. And what do I see? I see all these wrinkles and veins and different colors because somewhere blue veins shine through and things like that. Then I take this hand to college. What do I see? Sharper microscope. My hand is actually made out of atoms and molecules. Then I take it to an even bigger microscope. There's one in Germany, one in Geneva, one in California. And what do I see? Space with flickering lights. Okay, so what's my hand? Alright? That's my hand. I see my hand as a solid object because my eyes are not good enough instrument and my brain has no capacity to compute what is really there. So this is an illusion. I see it, it's real, but at the same time, it's an illusion. Because now I take this 1 kilometer long, big, huge microscope and bring it in here, and I point it at the wall, and I look through it, and I see the cement is nothing else but space and flickering light. And I point it at you, and you're nothing else but space and flickering light. And I point it at the blanket and the wooden floor, and it's nothing but space and flickering light. Okay? We only see the differences in things because our instruments and our brains do not have the capacity to see what is really there. Because of our brain computer, we are limited by our experience to the subjective view of how to see the world. This is why in yoga we talk about reality. The reality is not the reality you see. All right? Can you follow? It'll take you years to catch up with all the stuff you learned yesterday and today, right? So don't worry about it. But if you have a feeling you have get understanding or sense of it, then you're on the right track. Right? So slowly and slowly we become aware that our body is what? Illusion. Space with flickering light, which we perceive like that because we haven't got the capacity to perceive the whole reality. So now see, all my worries, all my suffering, all my pains, all my this, that, and the other, for what? Let go. It's not real. You cry, you suffer, you pain, you hurt, for what? Think of the example I gave you yesterday of Ramana Maharshi, who said when he had cancer, so in my body. And we pay so much attention to that. And we need to. Because without that healthy body, we cannot have the capacity to understand the bigger picture. Right? So both things, it's called a conundrum. Both things are true. It's there and it's not there. But once we see it's there and it's not there, then we don't suffer anymore so much. And that is the big, big teaching of life. There's no need to suffer. Whatever it is.